There she is.
There's Kim. Yeah, so in the book, the minute you open it up, the dedication is to Kim, who leaps, and Kim, who is our hostess, is the person to whom the book is dedicated. So, um,
Now that's an honor.
Tell me about it. Wow. Yeah, that's one for the books. But it is. It's yeah.
so I
Have you done the local book signing in person yet?
know that's the 11th.
Okay.
The local book signing is on April 11th at the Barnes and Noble in Santa Fe. I have to go to Santa Fe tomorrow, and I'm gonna go to the Barnes and Noble and see if I can see the book. And
Uh-huh.
and that might result in me like sitting on the floor in a Barnes and Noble crying. We're gonna find out.
Ha, ha, ha. Go for it, girl.
It very well might. So, yeah, we're gonna find out. We've got I had 37 emails, and then I've got about 10 or 11 people from Facebook as well. So we might end up with the full quorum of 50, which was my stab in the dark random goal for this. We may or may not meet that, but we'll figure it out. Kim, I was showing Josh I have the LED sparkler that he gave me. So I have all these little ways of celebrating here.
Perfect.
These
I
are
love that.
essentially cat toys, honestly. Hi, Cindy. One of my earliest writing partners.
Hi, friend. I miss you.
I miss you too.
It's been too long.
It has been. I haven't been to Ohio in a really long time.
I know. I miss you.
Oh wow, you're an Ohio friend.
I'm an Ohio friend.
Wow, you're the OG, man.
Yeah.
There's going to be a couple of those on here probably.
Oh, I love that.
Yay.
What part of Ohio?
I'm in Kent, so Northeast
Nice.
Ohio,
Yeah.
minutes from Kent State University.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, Alicia, this is going to be a Dr. Alicia Anderson. This is your life,
Good Lord, don't
right?
do that to me. Like I said, most of today, my predominant emotion has been nausea. So I just did, like I was talking with some friends earlier, and I was talking about how the fact of the matter that anxiety and excitement feel exactly the same way in the
Yeah.
body, and it's
Yeah.
how we frame it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been there all day.
And how we feed it.
Yeah, and how we feed it, that's true. So, oh boy. Yeah, so my spiel was 21 minutes when I practiced it earlier. We're gonna see.
Okay.
We're gonna see how I do.
Okay.
It's always better to have practiced though,
Yep.
because I use a lot of so's and ums as verbal punctuation.
Mm-hmm.
And if I've practiced, I cut back on those somewhat.
Well, again, one more benefit of this is your life, because all these people here really don't give a damn about your so's and ums. We just like you. We're here for whatever, you know.
See,
So
this is
yeah.
why I chose Kim, because she's gassing me up. So she'll keep me going.
It is a big day. It's a great day. And I think it's wonderful to have this opportunity to gather around you and celebrate this and for you to kind of introduce your baby.
And just to make it official, like I
Yep.
feel like because it's launch day, I feel like I'm not like at the bookstore. Like I'm not noticing that it's real.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
makes it realer.
Really important, I think. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So
Well, I was just excited when I got my email. today from Amazon saying the new release from Alicia Anderson's out. I was like, it felt like almost seeing it in the bookstore, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
It's good.
that is exciting. Oh, we got a lot of folks coming in now. So.
I better open up the chat. I better open up that chat.
By the way, Alicia, my husband says hello too.
Tell Brian I said hi.
I will.
Becca.
Hi.
Oh my gosh. You're right, Kim. It is the This Is My Life.
Yeah.
I've got folks from all of these eras.
I
of
know.
my
You
world.
know, I love that though, because we don't usually have all that many opportunities for that to happen before our funeral. So, for all those who don't know me, you can always count on me also to bring up death. So there's that. You know, always funeral talk with me.
All the folks from Morbid Anatomy don't care.
Yeah, yeah. But it is a neat opportunity, and I'm glad you're getting to feel the support from everybody. This is cool.
So, Kim, you've met Kara before.
I know. I was just like, oh, it's Kara.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, girl. That's who it is.
Yeah. My book came out on her birthday.
Yeah. Oh, there's
Heck of a birthday
Josiah.
present.
Hi, Josiah.
Hi, Alicia. Congratulations. I'm at work, but I should be able to join properly soon.
Thank you. Hi, John. Yeah, we're going to get started here in a little bit. Whenever I do these Zooms, I'm always like, I expect half the people who signed up to show up. I'm like, if I get 50%, I'm good. Anybody else is gravy. So
Can you hear my cat?
Yes. It's a great sound.
Yeah, he wants to go outside.
if Josh weren't muted, we'd hear his cat too.
In fact, I'm going to actually pause my video for a second and take him outside. I'll be right back. Just a minute. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. You gotta wait for me. Wait.
Oh, funny. Yeah, this is
You have to stay
there's
in.
folks from North Atlantic Books, which is the publisher,
Lots of luck.
mixed in with grad school, mixed in with grade school, mixed in. Mixed in with a couple folks from Morbid Anatomy, a couple of folks from New Mexico. Like it's a whole review. Oh, I see your chat, Julia. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I've been talking about how great this team is and how supportive and wonderful everybody at North Atlantic has been. Oh. Linda, it's so wonderful that you could join us.
Glad to be here. Your book is so terrific.
I'm so excited. And Linda, how do you pronounce your last name? Because I have said it differently every time I say it out loud.
Oh, it's Buzzell.
Bazell. Okay, thank you. It's one of those things where when you know a word only by reading it, right?
Right.
All right, Kim, are we getting ready to get started?
Let's do it. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our wonderful launch party for Burnout Recovery by our beloved Alicia Anderson, Ph.D. I am Kim Richardson. I am a friend and former coworker of Alicia. So some of the stories that you hear or that you read about in the book, I was present for. I worked in the same office when some of that burnout was happening. So some of that was very familiar to me. So I'm very honored to be acting as your hostess this evening. Of course, I don't have to say much about Alicia because you all obviously know about Alicia, but I'm going to anyway. So as many of you know, she received her PhD in mythological studies and depth psychology from Pacifica Graduate Institute a couple of years ago. And around that same time, she took a huge, huge leap, leaving her 20-year career as an expert in organic search and digital marketing to become a writer, a coach, a teacher, a speaker, and an all-around total badass. She is my mentor, my inspiration, my friend, my confidant. Yeah, so she's all the things, and I could not be prouder of her. Before we get started, before I get started with Alicia, I did want to take a moment and recognize you, Linda, as Alicia just mentioned. Linda Bazell is, she wrote the foreword to Alicia's book. She is a psychotherapist specializing in ecotherapy and nature therapy. She's the founder of the International Association for Ecotherapy. Linda, I was hoping that you could give us just a little nugget to help us to understand or get the concept of eco-psychology.
Well, that's part of what I love about this book that Alicia's done is how, eco psychology is really about healing the relationship between humans and the earth. And this is absolutely all the way through the book. There's beautiful examples. And of course, the use of her metaphor of fire and water and all the elements. I mean, it's really perfect the way you've woven it all together. So I really appreciate that. And this is definitely ecotherapy as far as I'm concerned.
That's great. Boy, Linda, you sure do have a lot of job security given the state of affairs in our world. Linda got into a good field, everybody. If we need to heal our relationship with the earth, boy. So good one, Linda. So it sounds like, it makes a lot of sense then that you would write the foreword for this book. It is kind of in your wheelhouse. Do you have anything for you, like burnout, the topic itself, burnout recovery? Why do you feel like that's an important book right now?
Wow. Well, I think all of us, as Alicia explains in the book, are in some stage of burnout, whether you go all the way out to, how we're all dealing with the environment. And where I live, we also have wildfires and mud flows and all of that. But I can't think of many places on the planet where people are not feeling this kind of pressure now.
Yeah.
And there isn't a need to heal our relationship with the rest of nature. So that's what I love about the analogy that you made, Alicia, that burnout is, wow, it's everywhere. And we really, need a lot of the insights that you've mentioned in the book as to how are we going to deal with this?
Yeah, one of the things Alicia and I spoke about recently is how, burnout feels like a hot topic. It feels very big right now because it is. I think that our burnout is really growing given, as I said, everything that's going on in the world. Well, Linda, I'm so glad that you're with us, and thank you again for contributing to this book and for all the support that I know you've given to Alicia. And with that, I shall hand it over to the wonderful Dr. Alicia Anderson.
Thank you. So for the little spiel that I've been practicing, I did not want to actually do a reading. And the reason I didn't want to do reading is because frankly, I'm a better storyteller than I am a reader. And really what I wanted to talk about is the piece of the introduction where I talk about how this book came to be. So much of the book is exercises and workbooks and rituals and things to do. And so there isn't like a solid place to just like do a reading from the middle. It's much easier for me to explain kind of where it came from and what the genesis of this book was. And it really did start around 10 years ago. And Kim mentioned that we used to sit in the same cube farm at WebMD. And in 2016, February of 2016, so 10 years ago, almost to the month, I wrote in my journal that work was soul killing, that it was killing me to go to work every day, that I was starting to feel that depersonalization, that despair, that overwhelm. I was getting way too much work and not enough meaning out of it. And I was super overwhelmed at the time. In 2016, I was working essentially the equivalent of about 4 people's full-time jobs in my one job. And that overwork was originally tied to great deep personal meaning. I felt like I was doing something useful and good. And over time that kind of drained out and it was just what was left was just kind of, well, I'm kind of good at it and guess I should just keep doing it and I'm making decent money, but it wasn't actually anything that was fulfilling to me. In January of 2017, right after a year of basically being burned out and overworked, I was going through the process of making a presentation for the C-suite for why I needed one more person on my team. I was like, I just need one more person. I just need just one more person's worth of help. And it got declined. And the next day, the stress levels were so high that I woke up in a complete psoriatic arthritis flare. I had been managing the psoriatic arthritis with diet and exercise for years. And the stress was just so overwhelming that the next day I literally couldn't put pants on. I couldn't put clothes on. I texted my boss. I was like, I can't get dressed. I can't come to work. And I ended up just collapsing. And it takes, about 8 months for you to actually get to the point where you're having medication work on that kind of autoimmune illness. So I had about half of a year of just laying in bed, staring at the ceiling, questioning everything. And I also started working from home. And the upshot of working from home was that I realized that my little autistic brain was way happier not having fluorescent overhead lights and constant interruptions and people walking around me in the cube farm all the time, that I was way better at home. And that actually helped me to understand that maybe I was autistic. It started me down the road of diagnosis. I didn't get actually diagnosed until 2020, but I was cycling in and out of professional burnout, autistic burnout, all of these things all at the same time. And my decision as a chronic overachiever, and this will make about half of the room laugh, my decision of what to do with all of this angst and stress was to just enroll in grad school, because that's what you do. That's what you do, right? You just enroll in grad school and pursue a passion project. Well, it had all the meaning behind it. But of course, now I'm going to grad school and working full time and having chronic illness and figuring out autism like all at the same time, which was a little silly. But while I was enrolled in grad school and traveling out to California, there were the Thomas Fire in Carpinteria and outside of Santa Barbara happened while we were traveling back and forth. And we actually had to go to Zoom classes because of the mudslides. And we had this fire scar that was visible up on the mountain every time we would go back to school. And it was actually then and there that I came up with this metaphor for my own burnout and my own burnout recovery, looking at how this fire scar was coming back. So let's like speed through all of 2020 and the autism diagnosis and everything else that was going on. I moved to New Mexico in 2021. And in 2021, when I moved to New Mexico, I like complete leap of faith, like, let me just go do this. And I like worked out of a hotel room for 2 months, which Rebecca remembers. And um, and then I bought my house. I closed on my house in December of 2021. In April of 2021, 4 months after I closed on this house, 2 months after I finished this library, which is like the complete beating heart of this house. So 4 months in, New Mexico suffered the largest wildfire in the state's history. Over 500,000 acres burned. And that particular wildfire came within a mile and a half of my house. And we had to evacuate. We evacuated for 10 days, right around Mother's Day of 2022. And I learned a lot more about wildfire than just seeing a fire scar up in the distance, right? I learned about what it looks like on a daily basis, what it looks like when the animals were all fleeing into my yard, what it looked like when we're watching multiple fires around the state happen at the same time. My friend MJ, who is here, was running a Twitter roll call every single day, making sure people were safe and that they had a place to go. Like this was just an amazing like experience, and it was also completely life-changing. So I have this lived experience of wildfire, this 7 years of burnout. And at this point, I was still doing this job. I only had meaning in so much as I was feeling like I could be a good manager or I could train people. As long as I wasn't in the spreadsheets every day, I was doing okay, but I was still super burned out and I still really didn't love it anymore. It still didn't have that juice for me anymore. And so what happened in early spring of 2023 was I went to a retreat with an author who's another North Atlantic Books author, Lorraine Van Toyle. I went on her retreat, and in the midst of it, we were working with all of the elements, and she brought up fire. And I felt like fire was really dead in me. And then she's like, no, no, fire's your anger. Fire's where you're angry. Where are you angry? Where are you passionate? And my anger came up, and I was like, I'm angry at these people who are always booking over my work blocks when I'm trying to get my freaking dissertation done. And I had this moment of anger about that. And I was really able to get in touch with it. And by the end of the retreat, I had gone through and declined all the meetings that were over my work blocks with so much rage, like, yeah. And then I also was able to really see that I needed to get out. And so I set a date. I set a date right then and there. I said, September, October 2023, I'm leaving. And I worked toward that date. So I wrote a like 30-page book of where all of the information was for when I left behind. And I was working on my dissertation, but I was also kind of like setting everything up to be able to leave. And so in October 2023, I quit my job. And I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was like, what do I do? What am I going to do next? And I'm like going on field trips. Like I took myself to the museum. Do I want to be a museum curator? I don't know. And so like I'm just wandering around the world trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. And I know me, and I know like my autism, but I also know my need for routine and work. And so I was like, well, I need to show up to myself every day. I need to show up to myself every day and do a job. And so the job that I did every day after I quit my job was to write this book. And I poured everything into it, from learning through 7 years of burnout, learning through grad school and ecopsych and depth psychology, and having the idea of a metaphor that guides us through a big life change. I used the lived experience of being so close to this giant wildfire. I used the lived experience of coming out of all of this burnout, and I just basically wrote the book that I wish I had 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I've read a bunch of these books, and they all talk about the fire stage. I have a 4-stage cycle that I talk about in the book. They all talk about the fire stage, but none of them talk about the rest of it. And it's like, I can get you to like dig the trenches and get yourself out of fire. But then what? And what happens with a lot of people with the burnout cycle is fire is so when we think about the fire cycle itself, I actually have a slide that I can share that's very dorky. Um,
Bring it. Work out.
but basically, oh, Josh, you need to turn on the sharing so that I can do that. Josh is my host here. Okay.
Did that work?
It should, yes. So when I talk about the fire cycle, almost all of the books that are and psychological cycle models that are out there only focus on the anger and hopelessness. The World Health Organization talks about depersonalization and stress and despair and this idea of cynicism and jadedness. And this is where like quiet quitting and all of that stuff comes in. And the thing about fire is that it is empowering because anger is empowering. Anger as an emotion is rocket fuel for change. Your anger is actually enough energy to change something that's violating you. And so if you're being violated by this thing that you're angry about, then you have motivation and anger and forward momentum. The thing is that once you turn out all the fires and you actually get the fire out, the thing that actually ends wildfire out in nature is rain. And that rain that falls is actually what ends the anger and the hopelessness. But that rain is the flood. And the flood stage is this idea of grieving the person that you were and what got you to this state. So anybody who knows me, and there's some people in here who've known me since I was 4 years old. A lot of folks here have known me for 20, 30 years. And any of you all know I'm type A, I'm an overachiever. I've always got a bajillion irons in the fire. I'm a perfectionist. You all know that about me, right? Well, that was who I was that created the burnout. And I had to let go of a lot of that. I had to let go of that and like take a nap in the middle of the day. I had to let go of the working full time. I work maybe 5 hours a day now. Like the things that had to change to get me out of burnout were letting go of these massive pieces of myself. And when we let go of pieces of our identity, we have to grieve them. But grief doesn't feel empowering. Grief is sad. Grief is depressing. Grief is pulling into a blanket fort. And nobody wants to do that when you have access to the power of anger. So most of us just cycle right back into fire because that's so much more energizing. At least you feel like you have some control there. And that's why I cycled in and out of burnout for 7 years, because every time I'd hit the flood stage, I'd nope back out into fire. And so eventually, though, if you get through the grief, you get into regrowth. And regrowth is around hope and curiosity. And the initial image that came to me around the wildfire concept was one of my canopy had already burned. The big trees that were holding up the sky in my forest of SEO and digital marketing and content strategy, those things were gone. Those trees were decimated. They were beyond coming back. So then what has to grow back? What has to come back into the world? It's lots of little things. You're not going to grow a giant tree overnight. You're going to grow tiny little plants. You're going to grow mullein. You're going to grow little weird stuff. And you're going to grow it because birds bring it in and insects bring it in. And it's lots of little things, but there's a lot of hope and curiosity of discovering it. And maybe some of those things are new trees. Here in New Mexico, the pine forests will go away, but then hardwoods will actually grow in their place. And so where you see groves of oaks or elms, it's actually because a wildfire has gone through there. But you get different trees, right? But you still might get trees, but it's still going to take 20 or 30 years for those trees to, again, develop a full canopy. And then finally, you end up into resilience and awareness. Once you start to regrow your forest, what you end up with is I got to prevent future wildfires in my life. Here in New Mexico right now, we are in fire season and we are in deep fire prevention. We've got all the signs up everywhere of, don't run a car on dry grass, all of these things talking about how do we prevent a spark from happening here. And that's the same thing with burnout. We know once we've gone through this cycle, first of all, that we have the ability to prevent it from happening again. But second of all, that we have the responsibility to prevent it from happening again. And that's where it's super important for us to think about the idea of wildfire prevention in our own minds and hearts. And so, like Linda was saying, we're all at some point in the wildfire cycle, but a lot of us might be in prevention. And what I'm talking about with wildfire prevention when it comes to burnout is stuff like if you know that you've got a busy season coming up. When I worked for publicly traded companies, it was always the last week before the shareholder meeting. At the end of every quarter, it was always hell. It was that 1 week. So maybe don't ever put a dentist appointment on that week. Maybe do some meal prep so that you've got some food in the freezer and healthy meals pulled in before that week so you don't have to think about it. So you just have healthy meals. Maybe what you do is make sure that you've got the rest of your workload either finished in advance or pushed out deadlines after that week so that you're not also juggling day-to-day work and like client meetings in the midst of that shareholder push. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about with the wildfire prevention. So I can stop sharing. I had the little
That was great.
the little visual aid, which is helpful. But yeah, so that is kind of the piece that I wanted to share today. I hope I didn't go over my 20 minutes too badly, Kim.
I wasn't paying any attention to the time. How about that? I mean, not gonna, play you off with any music or anything. So, we're here to talk to you. We're here to hear what you want to say. So that's fine. That's great. This is a little bit of an odd question, Alicia. And then I know other people probably have some questions. I want to open it up to them as well. One of the things that struck me, and you and I haven't spoken about this, so everybody, this is a live Zoom call. We don't know what's going to happen. How is she going to answer? I don't know. But what did strike me when you were just talking about prevention is how, well, and I guess somebody has to be in a certain place to even pick up a recovery book because that means you actually want to get well. But I do think like prevention, I think when you were saying those things about how you can make those super busy times at work, for example, more manageable, I think that one of the things that can be difficult for us, especially like if we are prone to burnout, that might also be because we've loved sacrificing ourselves on the altar of like, the badge of wonderfulness that we're so busy, like some of that prevention, I can see a lot of people wouldn't want to take those steps because then, oh my gosh, might miss the chance to be kind of a martyr at work. So that's part of it. I guess my question for you in that regard is that for you, do you think, was there any part of that in the years leading up to your burnout that you kind of had to kind of maybe get over before you could actually address the burnout in a more comprehensive way?
Well, the martyrdom less than the overachiever, but the martyrdom came in more when I was a manager.
Uh-huh.
I was a manager, and it's so funny. I'm looking at one of my former direct reports. As a manager, I was so intent on protecting her from burnout.
Mm-hmm.
I was so intent on protecting my team from burnout that I would rather sacrifice myself than them go before the blade.
Right.
It was like, take me, like that's where the martyrdom comes in was when I was being a manager and trying to keep them from burning out.
Yeah.
And I think that was a huge part of it for me. I think after I quit and it was just me by myself, still managing not burning out, which is day to day.
Yeah.
The overachiever is definitely the piece of myself that I have to work with the most. Because this overachiever, anybody who's a recovering overachiever or who is an overachiever knows it works. It's really effective. I can finish a dissertation in grad school and full-time work and write a book all at the same time because I can. It's super effective. And the fact that it's killing me at the same time is just kind of secondary.
Yeah. Can't have it all.
So I have to be better at taking care of myself. And it's the overachiever that I have all of these conversations with then.
Yeah, yeah.
Way more than the martyr. The martyr did come up a lot when I was a manager, though.
Yeah. I kind of I've got both, but I've definitely had my martyr days. And it's odd, it can be oddly satisfying. So I'm gonna shut my yap now and open it up to anyone and everyone else. If anybody has, some questions or wants to share some things or anything.
I just want to thank
Right.
everybody for being here. I'm just so jazzed to see all these faces. I keep seeing folks from undergrad and high school and
High school
It's really beautiful.
and mom.
Mhm.
So you can put a question in the chat if you'd like, or there's a little down at the bottom of your screen, where's the little hand, Alicia?
I think it's in the React.
Oh, in the React. Open reactions panel. You can react.
Click on the
You
heart.
can raise your hand if you'd like to, if you have a question.
Yeah. Zoom changed everything last week, and it's been a little
Oh,
bit.
they did?
Yeah, I don't know this thing at all. I'm like, I don't know where I am.
We're all kind of lost with the Zoom business, so that's good. So I'm gonna
Christine's here.
Alicia, do you want to talk a little bit about why we need guiding metaphors? Because this is where this kind of ties in with your PhD work is, mythology, storytelling.
Yeah. It's so funny. This is a live Zoom, y'all. I asked him to ask me this question, but then I never figured out what my answer was.
That's perfect. I love that though. I love that. Yeah, freestyle.
So much of using mythology or stories or storytelling or ecological metaphors are around the idea of using them as a psychological roadmap. So Joseph Campbell has talked about the 4 functions of myth, and the functions of myth are cosmic and social and give us an idea of our place in the world. But at the very root of it, the like smallest function of myth is psychological roadmaps. It's a guide to living a better life or a more whole life. And so the idea is that we can figure out where we are in the process, which is what I do in the book. I have a lot of little self-assessments to figure out where we are in the burnout cycle. And then from knowing where we are, what does the next step look like? And how do we get from here to there? And if you can figure out where you are in a myth, I often get dreams that'll be like, oh, I'm here in this myth. Got it. If you know where you are in that myth or where you are in that metaphor, then what you can do is kind of figure out the next step forward, whether that is through some sort of action or inaction, ritual or thought process, or something that you need to do to go forward. So the use of a guiding myth is a really beautiful way to kind of give us a psychological GPS. Often we know where we're headed or we know where we want to get to health or wellness or well-being, but we don't often have the little blue dot of the car that says where we are on the map. And then we don't necessarily know, hey, if I take this route, it'll be the same time, but I can see this pretty view or something like that. And so it gives us that roadmap for what we can do going forward. And finding an ecological metaphor for it is kind of using the old magical premise of as above, so below, and as without, so within. And so if we've got as without, so within, if we know where we are in this wildfire, we'll be able to figure out what the next step is and what the next step after that looks like.
And I relate to what you're saying because I'm like that. almost killed myself running myself into the ground working in New York City. Got so sick with chronic fatigue that the doctor said, you have to stop everything. You can't go to work in New York, commute from New Jersey, go to school at night, have a boyfriend in New York, and go to the gym and then wonder why you're burned out. You're going to die. My blood count, my white blood cell count was so bad they thought I had leukemia. And
Wow.
he said, you have to do nothing. I said, well, like, I'm single. I have to have a job. I said, what's plan B? He goes, you can go to work. And that's it. And I was so sick when that happened, I couldn't go upstairs to bed. I was just like on the couch, hoping I wouldn't die. I would go to sleep. And I had to learn to do better and take care of me first because I'm a middle child in a goofy family and I'm the empath surrounded by the narcissists. And first I moved to California to get away from them. So that helped out. And I had therapy, but then I got sick when I came back home. And it was like there were a lot of adjustments that had to be made. And you know what? The therapist said, it's going to piss the people off that are, using you. And I was like, what? But luckily I was dating a guy in New York, the one really good one. And, he said, he was like, your family is toxic. He said, and they just use you and you want everything to be nice. And it's never nice and it's never peaceful. And you're running yourself into the ground and nobody's throwing bouquets. They're just throwing more stuff at you. And I thank God every day. And it was a man who told me about that. It was a boss back in California. And he was not necessarily, maybe he sensed it, but he was in therapy. And this is the 70s. So it was a long, long time ago. And he said to me, yeah, I think everybody would benefit from therapy. He said, I personally am going to reclaim my penis for my mother. And I was like, what? What he was
Oh, wow.
saying
I
is,
think we're getting off
you
on a
can
tangent.
let your family just rip you to pieces.
Yeah.
But you have the choice.
Yep.
And it was so empowering. But that was the funny thing. He said, they're going to hate it and they are going to try to drag you back in. And you're going to have to just say, no.
Yeah.
No.
And Alicia,
no.
and Alicia has, and Alicia has some exercises. I think one of the things I love about the book is so many of the exercises like build on one another. And so you're kind of working your way up to a place where you're able to, number one, identify the boundaries that you need to set and that you're able to actually set them and kind of be prepared for the blowback that's going to happen. So, I mean, I'm with you, Mary Jane, in terms of being a huge fan of therapy, but I will say one of the things that I love so much about this book is how useful the exercises are and how, Alicia really kind of holds your hand for you to do your own kind of self-exploration in the quiet of your own space. I thought that
I'm currently not in therapy, but the road never ends.
Yeah, exactly. Alicia, do you want to talk a little bit about one of the things I asked you the other day was to talk a little bit about or just mention how burnout is not limited to work, right?
Yeah. One of the things that I've had conversations with in multiple contexts is the fact that the World Health Organization says burnout is a work phenomenon. And it's like anyone who has a brain reads that and says bullshit. Because we don't work in a vacuum. We don't live in vacuums. We don't just like sleep under our desks and then show up as employees, right? Like we also have the mental load at home. We have whatever's going on with childcare. We have whatever's going on with caregiving elder parents or anything like that, as well as just like, house stuff or fire safety preparation in my yard or anything like that all comes into it. And then on top of that, we have any sort of stress or upset that comes from the news cycle
Mhm.
or from climate change and things going on around us in the climate. There's a ton of different stressors that are all happening all at once to all of us.
Mhm.
And the thing is that, yeah, burnout shows up at work, and often it'll show up first at work,
Mhm.
but it's not just a workplace phenomenon.
Right.
It is a whole person, whole life thing.
Mhm.
And I think that's such an important part of what we need to all kind of remember when we're thinking about the recovery process as well. One of the things in the book that I talk about is gathering a support team.
Mhm.
And it's the very first task. It's the very first thing you have to do. You have to build your support team. And the reason you have to build your support team is because you cannot do it alone
Mhm.
and because you need everybody on the bus with you.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so when you're going to go changing those rules, you're going to be
Mhm.
setting those boundaries, you
Mhm.
need everyone who's around you to know, I'm protecting myself, I'm dealing with burnout, I'm trying to do what's good for me. This is going to change how you interact with me.
Mhm.
And that includes people at home and people at work and people in our lives. So it's a huge thing.
It sure is.
If I might ask, I would assume that also goes for preventing burnout.
Yes.
Before you ever get there, saying, this is my boundary because I don't want to be burned out.
Right. Right. You're exactly right. There's a huge part of prevention also includes all the rest of your life. And so I think that what you have to think about is how do you maintain that self-care throughout the time? Sarah, I noticed you had your hand up. Do you want to jump in?
Well, I was going to put you on the spot and ask you a question, just to sort of get your thoughts on it. I think a lot of people are familiar with kind of the cultural phenomenon of the midlife crisis, right? Where you get to a point in your life where you kind of crash out. And I was wondering whether you saw any kind of relationship between is what manifests as midlife crisis. Is that the unhealthy version of dealing with your wildfire with burnout?
Oh, and how much of midlife crisis is also biological and perimenopause?
Mhm.
Right. All coming together sort
All
of
coming
to
together
a
in a
head.
great
Right.
conflagration, right? Um, um, I think that the cultural phenomenon of midlife crisis is kind of like a tropey thing.
Right.
But the tropey element of it is basically I'm gonna get the sports car, YOLO, like
Mhm.
I'm gonna go do this thing that I always wanted to do, which are ways of dealing with burnout. Like
Right.
that
Mhm.
they are kind of self-care. They are kind of seizing your joy and your passions in the face of maybe you've built a career that no longer serves you or no longer feels good. And so I do think that there's an element of both and in that answer. um, I don't know. I'm not a midlife crisis expert in any way.
Well, thank you for letting me put you on the spot like that.
I did notice that Bethany asked a question in the chat. Can
Mhm.
we grab that really quickly?
Yeah.
She asked if I'm leading any workshops for those interested in burnout recovery. And the first thing that I'm doing is actually a 6-month community. It starts in June, and I can share a link to it. It is basically designed to help for people who can't even think about burnout yet, for whom burnout is like not even on the radar. Because what I'm running into when I talk to people about burnout is they're like, I, I'm too burned out to think about burnout. Like I can't recover from that. I've got too much going on. And so what I wanted to do was create a community that would provide that support and a safe space and a love and belonging for one another to be able to work through some of that boundary setting, some of the people pleasing, some of those things that we need to work on in order to create and claim space for ourselves in our own lives. So the idea is to create space for your goals, dreams, and creative passions. And it's a 6-month thing with a community that is then a cohort of people who become kind of your people. And like I said, the very first thing that's recommended in the book is to build a support network. This is basically for the people who might not be able to have a support network in their local environment. Maybe you're way out in the sticks like me, or maybe you just need a different kind of community support. The idea of the workshop is for the purpose of providing that support for people who are who need that support network but don't necessarily have it available to them. I'm going to put a link to that in the chat so that you guys have it.
That's great. And so for anybody on the call, if you know somebody who is, I guess, kind of losing their marbles, then, I get how would you, I guess if you had a way to describe someone who this is for, is like, it is, I guess, if you're feel overwhelmed maybe in your life, then that might be something that this could be helpful.
Yeah, overwhelm, even if it is burnout, or you feel like you need to gain a sense of sovereignty or peace or inner calm or anything like that, just like kind of creating. The little doodle that I drew when I came up with this idea was, first you start with your scuba helmet, and then you have a bubble, and then you have like you have these safe spaces for your own mind and heart and passions. And so the idea is creating those safety zones, kind of like what we do with wildfire, where you have your 10 feet around the house, your 30 feet around the house, that same idea. It really is a burnout workshop in a lot of ways, but it's not, it's kind of hitting more at the flood stage, where it's like, I know something in me probably needs to change and I need community to help me with it.
Oh, yeah. Which I guess leads me to another question, one that you and I had spoken about, is if someone we know is burned out or in the process of being burned out, what can we do to support them? Obviously, we can send them to the workshop, but how do you speak to people in your life that you can see, who you can see are going through this? And in your experience, are people open to hearing that?
Are people open to hearing that they might be burning out or burned out?
Yeah.
Not usually.
I thought you might say that.
A fellow coach of mine once said, burnout is a vulnerable position.
Yeah,
And
it is.
And I agree with that statement. Mostly the best way to support somebody is to encourage and help them problem solve with the boundaries. Like to say, okay, you need to take a break, but I understand that doesn't feel possible.
Yeah.
And then you be that support network to kind of help them figure out how to help them problem solve that, taking a break, that cutting off at the end of the day or something like that. You might be an accountability partner. There's more than one person on this call that has texted me every day as an accountability partner. And you might do that as like another way of, oh, I set aside time for myself and I did the thing that I care about. And, you might be an accountability partner the same way you are with somebody that, working out. Or you might just hold space for them to be able to work through the situation themselves. Because a lot of folks are going to need to talk about these feelings. And so, practicing reflective listening is not that difficult. And it can be incredibly helpful to be like, you sound really angry about this. Because the thing about burnout is that most people don't think they're angry. They
Mhm.
don't think that they're angry at all. And that anger usually is implosive. They're mad at themselves because they're letting that death by a thousand cuts take over. And then
Mhm.
they turn it all inward. And
Mhm.
so naming the anger sometimes is more important than anything else.
Mhm.
Because like you seem like you're really angry. Or just
Mhm.
like reflecting back to them, you seem like you're really sad. That holding space for those big emotions can actually help get the ball rolling more than anything else.
Mhm. That makes a lot of sense. I've experienced that before. Someone calling me out, not, and that's not the right phrasing perhaps, but gently pointing out my anger. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm not angry. What the hell? You're nuts. Lex had a question in the chat, Alicia. Do you want to read that?
Yeah, what about the person who's burnout? We blame on the boss.
I can
So
elaborate if you like, but I think that's the
that's
essential
close.
question.
Yeah. So it's overwork, right? A lot of that burnout is overwork. It's asking too much. And um sometimes bosses don't say no when they need to say no.
Mm-hmm.
And they create that overwork and they don't protect. Like I was saying earlier, that I would be a martyr for my people to be like, no, you don't burn out. I'll go first, right? Not every boss is like that. And what happens is that they just pass it on, that overwork. And it's entirely likely the boss is also burned out.
Mm-hmm.
Middle managers are the highest risk for burnout. But also the thing is that ideally, when you're burned out, you say it to your boss and you say, I'm going to have to set boundaries with you. I'm going to have to say no. We're going to have to prioritize this work. Not all of this is going to get done. And when you have that conversation, it's a very hard conversation. And it's very hard as a boss to hear, honestly. It is incredibly difficult to have that conversation and be like, this is what's going to happen. But it's one of the most important conversations you can have to prevent and work on burnout. Because otherwise, you're just kind of eating it. You're eating the anger and you're internalizing it, and they're just keep piling stuff on.
Mm-hmm.
There's a note in the chat also that it applies to family. And what I'm going to say is, and I talk about this in the book, you got to let some of the plates fall.
Mm-hmm.
Let them crash to the ground. Drop some of them. I was spinning 93 plates at home. I was spinning 107 at work and going to grad school. And and the thing is that I didn't actually get help until I stopped doing the things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Until I actually stopped doing the things, nobody stepped up.
Mm-hmm.
When I quit the job, they took 5 people to replace me. 5 people replaced me at the job that I quit in 2017. And it's because I stopped doing the things, right? And at home when I had the arthritis and I was like laying in bed and I couldn't move, all of a sudden help happened because I stopped doing the things. It took the autoimmune and the chronic pain and the full body, oh my God, I'm dying, to make me stop doing the things because again, overachiever. And again, that's a part of who I am. But you have to actually drop the plates. You have to actually say, I'm not doing this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You have to actually lay those boundaries down and mean it and keep it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's incredibly difficult to do if you're an overachiever and a people pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny you should say that because I had it at the company with the nice boss, and I was that overachiever person. And I used to have this woman, it was a woman boss, and I'm old. Okay. So back then, for some reason, we didn't help each other up the ladder. And she would say to me, well, you have to work a lot of overtime and your desk is a mess. And, maybe you shouldn't talk on the phone. And we talked on the phone. That was our job. We were on, with clients. So much I said, I just moved here from New Jersey and I live with my boyfriend. I don't have anybody to talk to on the phone. So anyway, but the upshot was I went on vacation and what she would do was she would man your desk. I came back, she said, I don't have any idea how you possibly handled all that. We're cutting your desk in half, and they hired a second person. So you just, they don't see it. You don't say anything. You want to be good and da 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 da, and you're killing yourself.
Yeah, you have to be able to allow things to fall apart. And most of the time, I mean, unless your job is, like a brain surgeon, probably nobody's going to die from it. If you're a
Right.
brain surgeon, maybe don't let that fall apart.
Yeah, like I said, I have one of my former direct reports, and she can tell you that one of the things that I used to always say to our team was there is no such thing as an SEO emergency.
Right.
That nobody's going to die.
Right.
We got 2 weeks to fix this.
Right.
It can wait.
Yep. Yep.
And knowing the difference between a true emergency and not, especially in our corporate worlds, can be incredibly helpful.
I had a sign that said lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part.
That is often true, whether it's lack of planning or, as we were talking about middle managers, a lot of times their lack of spine, right? Then they're not doing what they need to do. So does anybody have any other questions? And I can end us with another.
Thinking
Okay,
of
John.
emergencies.
Okay, maybe. Yeah.
I'm reading B's poem.
I guess the other thing I wanted to talk about is, hope for ending the cycle. And what does end the cycle?
The real thing that ends the cycle is grieving and letting go of those pieces of yourself that created them.
Yeah.
We will stay in the cycle and continue going through the cycle until such a point as we let go of that perfectionism, that people pleasing, the lack of boundaries, all of those pieces. We will just burn ourselves out in a different way. Because we can do all of the meaning making and find all of the meaning and shore ourselves up and get all the regrowth and be all curious, but we'll just redo it again. And I'm going to tell a story with all names redacted. I ran into a networking situation where I was in a room with another author of a burnout book. And she and I were having this conversation, and she was like, you've got to do this or else you won't be a bestseller, and you have to be a bestseller, because why write a book if you're not a bestseller? And she's doing all of this stuff about being the best and having like the biggest best sales, and I'm going to be a keynote speaker and all of this stuff. And I was like, she is still so type A, my God.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because I realized she was just going to cycle right back around.
Yeah.
Watching her. And so we're connected on social media, and she was like, I'm so burned out on burnout. Here's a recipe. And now she's posting recipes. And it's the funniest thing to me because it's literally, she addressed the initial burnout. She put out the fire, but she didn't address what was going on. And I've got to be a bestseller.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you gotta ratchet all that way back down.
Yeah. So now, as she said, she's burned out about burnout. And maybe she should come to your workshop.
Maybe she should, yeah. She's got some good recipes. So
send her the link to the workshop. Sounds like she needs it. Any closing questions or thoughts before we wrap up?
Thank you all for setting this up. It's really been helpful and meaningful, and I'm so proud of Alicia, and I'm so thankful she is my friend.
I'm so glad she's my daughter.
I don't blame
Yeah,
you.
you win, Norma, for sure. You win. Awesome. Okay, everybody. Well, thanks again for being here. And again, a huge, huge, huge congratulations and well done to our wonderful Dr. Alicia Anderson. We love you.
Well done.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.